Welcome again, grade 12 students. This is the second video on Beowulf, or from Beowulf, translated by Burton Raffel, as you know. Let's read the background together. When Beowulf was composed, when the poem was written, England was changing from a pagan to a Christian culture. Pagan Anglo-Saxons told grim tales of life ruled by fate. Again, they told grim tales of life ruled by fate, tales in which people struggled against monsters for their place in the world. The missionaries who converted them to Christianity taught them that human beings and their choices of good or evil were at the center of creation. Beowulf reflects both. We talk about the poem, not the character. It reflects both pagan and Christian traditions. The selection opens during, again, this is a selection from a large or a big poem. This is just a selection. It opens during an evening of celebration at Herod. What's Herod? The banquet hall of the Danish king Hrothgar. Outside in the darkness, at that time, however, lurks, moves secretly, the murderous monster Grendel. Let's start reading the poem. The title of the first part is The Wrath of Grendel, the anger of Grendel. Line 1. A powerful minister, living down in the darkness, growled in pain, impatient. So this is the place where Grendel used to live, in the darkness. He growled, he shouted, he screamed in pain, impatient, as day after day the music rang loud in that hall, in Herod. This noise annoyed him, for he growled in pain. The harps rejoicing, the musical instruments cool, and the poets clear songs. Poets were singing, sung of the ancient beginnings of us all. The songs in the Herod were about how life on earth began, recalling the Almighty God. Almighty, capital A, remember, means God, making the earth, how God created the earth, shaping these beautiful plains, the mountains and the plain areas, marked off by oceans, how he created oceans, then proudly setting the sun and moon, how he set the sun and the moon in the sky to glow across the land and light it, both light the land, the sun during daytime and the moon during nighttime. The corners of the earth were made lovely. Then God created the corners of the earth with trees and leaves, made quick with life, with each of the nations who now move on its face. And then, as now warriors sang of their pleasure, all these songs were sung in the hall, Herod, as now warriors sang of their pleasure. So Hrothgar's men, Hrothgar is the king of Denmark at that time, Hrothgar the Danish king, or the king of the Danes, lived happy in his hall till the monster stirred, that demon, that fiend, Grendel, who haunted the moors, the swamps, the wild. Let's move on to the following page. Marshes, again, he haunted the moors, the swamps, the marshes, lived in these areas, and made his home in a hell. Not hell, but earth. He was spawned, he was born in that slime, in that mud, conceived by a pair of those monsters born of Cain. His parents were, let's say, descendants of Cain. You know who Cain is? Adam had two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel, as you know. Murderous creatures banished by God. His parents were banished, sent out of paradise or heaven by God, punished forever for the crime of Abel's death, for killing Abel, Qabil and Habil in Arabic. The Almighty drove those demons out, and their exile was bitter, was harsh. Shut away from men, they split into 1,000 forms of evil. Those who were sent out of paradise were split transformed into thousand forms of evil. They became spirits and fiends, goblins, monsters, giants, a brood forever opposing the Lord's will. They were against the Lord's God's will all the time, and again defeated and punished. Line 30. Then, when darkness had dropped, one night, when he was very annoyed by the noise the Danes were making in Heorot, Grendel went up to Heorot, wondering what the warriors would do in that hall when their drinking was done. After they had drunk, what would they do? He found them sprawled in sleep. They were sleeping peacefully, quietly, suspecting nothing. They were afraid of nothing. They enjoyed their night, ate, drunk, and now sleeping peacefully. Their dreams undisturbed, nobody to disturb their dreams. The monster thoughts were as quick as his greed or his claws. He slipped through the door, and there in the silence snatched up 30 men. He killed, he ripped off 30 of them, smashed them unknowing in their beds while they were sleeping, and ran out with their bodies. He carried their bodies and ran out with them, the blood dripping behind him, back to his lair, to his home, to his cave, delighted, very, very happy, excited with his night slaughter, with the massacre he has committed. At daybreak in the early morning, with the sun's first light, they saw how well he had worked. And in that grey morning, broke their long feast with tears and laments. They cried and cried because the monster killed 30 of their men. For the dead, Hrothgar, their lord, sat joyless. He was very unhappy, the king, in Heorot, as mighty prince mourning the fate of his lost friends and companions. He was lamenting, he was mourning the loss of his friends and companions, knowing by its tracks that some demon, they followed the drops of blood, or the saints of blood, or the stains, of blood on the earth or on the ground, had torn his followers apart. They knew that this was done by a monster or a demon. He wept. King Hrothgar wept, cried, fearing the beginning might not be the end. This might be the beginning, and every night this monster will come again and again and kill the same number again and again. And that night Grendel came again. Yeah, the second night the monster came again, so set on murder that no crime could ever be enough. He was hungry for their blood. No savage assault quench his lust for evil. Nobody can stop him. Then each warrior tried to escape him. The warriors were alerted this night, and they learned from what happened the night before. Searched for rest in different beds as far from Heorot as they could find. They went away, they escaped, seeing how Grendel hunted when they slept. They saw what happened last night. Distance was safe. The farther they were, the safer. The only survivors were those who fled him, and those who slept in the hole were killed again. Hate had triumphed. So Grendel ruled, fought with the righteous, one against many, and won. So Heorot stood empty and stayed deserted for years. How many years? 12 winters of grief for Hrothgar, king of the Danes. Every night Grendel came to the hole and stayed there for 12 years. Nobody dared go to this hole during night time. Sorrow heaped at his door. Sorrow piled up at his door, again and again accumulated by hell-forged hands. His misery leaped the seas. The other countries across the sea knew about the misery of his homeland. Was told and sung in all men's ears. People in Sweden heard about it, people in Germany heard about it, people in England heard about it. How Grendel's hatred began, how the monster relished, enjoyed his savage war on the Danes, keeping the bloody feud alive. Seeking no peace, offering no truce, they couldn't have any peace with him, any agreement that could stop the monster from killing those people. Nobody can deal with the monster. Accepting no settlement. He wouldn't accept any settlement. No price in gold or land, even if they gave him all the gold on earth, and paying the living for one crime only with another. No one waited for reparation. He wouldn't compensate them for what he had done from his plundering claws. That shadow of death, guys, is a cunning. This is a cunning. Shadow of death means Grendel. Hunted in the darkness. Stalked Hrothgar's warriors. Old and young, killed them, old and young, lying in waiting. Hidden in mist. Invisibly following them from the edge of the marsh. Always there. Unseen. He was killing unseen. Nobody saw him. This is why they couldn't reach him or have an agreement with him to stop this or give him whatever he wanted to stop killing them. So mankind's enemy continued his crimes. Again, mankind's enemy is a cunning or Grendel. Killing as often as he could, coming alone, bloodthirsty and horrible. Though he lived in Heorot, when the night hid him, he never dared to touch King Hrothgar's glorious. This is important. He stayed in Heorot for 12 years, but he never dared to touch King Hrothgar's chair or glorious throne. Why? Because it was protected by God. God, whose love Grendel could not know. Grendel doesn't know God's love. But Hrothgar's heart was bent. He was sad. The best and most noble of his council debated remedies. His people, his noblemen, debated remedies. How can we make this good again? Sat in secret sessions, sorry, talking of terror and wondering what the bravest of warriors could do. What can we do to stop this monster from killing our men and occupying our hall? And sometimes they sacrificed to the old stone gods. Although they were Christians at that time, they came back to the pagan habits, made heathen vows, hoping for hell's support, the devil's guidance in driving their affliction off. But they prayed for the pagan gods and make heathen vows, although they were Christians again. As we sometimes resort to sorcerers and magicians nowadays to do stuff we know it's illegal or haram to do, but we sometimes do this to get rid of our afflictions, our sufferings. That was their way, and the heathens only hope hell always in their hearts, knowing their God, nor their passing as he walks through our world, the Lord of heaven and earth. Their ears could not hear his praise nor know his glory. Let them beware those who are thrust into danger, clutched at by trouble, yet can carry no solace in their hearts. They don't have any comfort in their hearts, cannot hope to be better. Hail to those who will rise to God. Hail, greeting, salute those who resort to God when they have any suffering. Drop off their dead bodies and seek our Father's peace. Thank you very much. Let's stop here.